Yeah, I mean, so over 100, new faces in the gym in under 6 months, and we didn't get anything like those numbers before Revi. So like, not even close.
Again, thank you so much, Chase, for jumping on here. I'm really excited to chat with you over the next 15 minutes or however long it takes to go through this and just hear your story. So, kicking it off, I would love for you to kind of walk me through the earlier days of East Dallas CrossFit and kind of what your inspirations were from the beginning and what your vision was when, the gym was first opening its doors.
Absolutely. I haven't thought about it in a long time. It's been over 13 years now, so it's kind of fun to go back. But to be honest, we caught the CrossFit bug. Me and my two co-founders, Ryan and Ben, caught the CrossFit bug back in college. And we're really at that point, CrossFit.com would post like a daily workout, right? And you would like go to CrossFit.com, look at the daily workout, and they had this like comment function, and you would comment either your time or your number of reps or like whatever, and it would get like thousands of comments every day. And so really like that's kind of how CrossFit got popular. It was super underground. I think a buddy of ours that was like training for the military post college, like honestly, like turned us on to it initially. And yeah, we just started doing the workouts, like we would go to like a local high school in Austin, I remember, and just like they had a little pull-up rack and a track, and we do some running, some push-ups, some sit-ups, and things like that. So we really liked CrossFit. We liked that style of training. It was the first, it was the first class style training, I'd say, that was really intense. It was meant for athletes and weightlifters and just to become a better all-around athlete. And we really liked it. So fast forward about a year or two, I'm in Dallas. My buddy Ben's in Dallas. We're in our early 20s. We're kind of just like starting our careers, and our buddy Ryan calls us, and he's still in Austin at this point. He's joined a gym at this point, so he's more all in. We're still doing backyard workouts, and he kind of runs it by us. Hey, I want to thinking about opening a gym. Would you guys want to be a part of this process? And we just were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's figure it out. So uh, we ended up opening up in 1,000 square foot little warehouse space. Back then, you didn't need much to like, to attract people. It was just a little nothing. Like it was hard to get to. It didn't have, there was no signage, like, but class style training just wasn't really that popular. It was kind of cutting edge, so it was like we were able just to attract people with just the workout alone. And we kind of rode that wave, that early wave of just people really getting all in and obsessed with CrossFit. And within 2 years, we had moved to where we've been now for over 10 years, which is about a 3,500 square foot space with about 1,000 square feet outside as well. So it's a really cool facility. And it's been great. And we've really humble beginnings. I mean, we each chipped in $5,000, and I was like personally hand welding all of our like racks that we use in the beginning, the squat racks. I mean, even some of the ones that are still in there today, I personally like welded with a guy that I had, worked with years prior, who had a welding shop really close by. And because we couldn't afford to buy things on Rogue, and like we weren't going to take a bank loan, like we were super scrappy in the beginning. Ryan wasn't taking a salary. We weren't making any money as owners. We were just like, let's build this into something. And we did, and it's been consistent ever since then. About somewhere between year 2 and 4, it started to become where we could pay our trainers a real salary and take some money as owners, and really start to like, it really started to feel like a business, and at that point a pretty big community. We had made some of our best friends from just that initial core group of members, and still some of our best friends and adventure buddies. And we're not all in Dallas anymore, but still definitely some core friendships that came out of those early days. So yeah, that's how we got our start, and that's still kicking today. So
That's awesome. I think those scrappy, humble beginnings are what it's all about. And I was thinking when I was first opening my gym, it was an indoor cycling studio, and I was still going into my senior year of college at the time. And I finally found the space that I was opening it. And at the time, I couldn't afford purchasing all brand new spin bikes. And there was another studio closing down in the area that I was purchasing their used spin bikes from, and they were in pretty good condition. But it was kind of like a one time deal type of situation because they had to get the bikes out. So when that was happening, it was before my studio was even close to being ready to accept bikes. Like we were still building walls at the time.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with my 4 college roommates at the time. We were living in a townhouse. Like, hey, really good news. We have to move our cars out of the garage. And they were like, why? Because I was like, because I have 32 spin bikes being delivered. All of the spin bikes into my college townhome garage that a couple months later then had to transfer over. And all the initial like instructor trainings were all happening in my garage, and it was just such a funny time. And you said scrappy humble beginnings, and that's exactly what I thought of. So I think that's what
Yeah,
it's all about.
yeah, it's probably not talked about enough, and
Yeah.
now I have like enough years, that I've watched gyms come and go in the area and CrossFit locations, but also other class style gyms. And I will say most of the gyms that took out a big bank loan, built out a super expensive, build out and all that, they're all shut down today. I mean, they can't sustain that long term. And it probably needs to be discussed more because you have to start like that if you want to sustain long term. And we were doing the same thing. Back then, Craigslist was huge. So we were on Craigslist buying old gym equipment off of gyms that were shutting down left and right all the time. I mean, barbells and all sorts of things. So, um,
No, that's great. And I think another thing that has to be talked about more is the challenges that comes with owning a business and specifically owning a brick and mortar business. Because it's super easy to sit here and chat about the wins, especially early on. But I would love for you to walk me through some of, critical challenges you faced either early on or maybe once group fitness started becoming more popular and some realizations you had for having to try to start overcoming these challenges just as a business owner.
yeah, yeah. I mean, a few stand out. I mean, of course, there's just the couple years that I think, any entrepreneur needs to think like, okay, I'm going to start a business. You're probably not going to personally make money off of it for a couple of years unless you just have some, outsized success story. So you need to that's definitely one of the first challenges is just like, you kind of have to grind with no payoff in the early days. And, so that's something I've come to just like understand about business and time. But that was a challenge. You're working your butt off, for like no money, and even the head trainer was like doing the same thing. I mean, he was essentially like, working a full-time job without the full-time pay. So definitely some sacrifice that went in early on. I think reinventing the kind of, I guess, onboarding and style of training and things like that throughout the years, especially as you start to get more and more competition in the area, is definitely something that's been a bit of a challenge because, in the early days, and this is something I talked to you about even with Revi, but CrossFit was just pretty much had this one format. And it was you went to a CrossFit gym, and if you wanted to join, you had to go to this prep course that might start in some cases once a month, in some cases twice a month. The most aggressive gyms started maybe one per week, but it was at like set hours that might not even work for your schedule. It was like 7:30 to 8:30 Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or something like that. And you had to do that for 6 classes or 2 weeks. And in the beginning, I mean, people were all for it because it was a new style of training. There wasn't other options out there where people could just go hop in and pay like a daily fee. But that was, so we didn't have a problem with it in the beginning. I think when all these other gyms started to pop up, that definitely presented some challenges where we still operated that way for a long time. We tried to kind of update the format a little bit to make it shorter, so we kind of made our own tweaks to it. But ultimately, I think getting away from the prep course format and getting into where somebody can come into our gym and onboard took a whole new format of training that we just didn't have in the beginning, which is now we have 2 classes that essentially simultaneously run, right, while a class is going on. It's a class for people that are less serious about intense training or new to the gym, so they're just learning the movements. And then it's a class for people that are more serious and understand the Olympic lifts and the more serious movements. And so we had to change our training protocol first to even adopt this kind of come into the gym and be safe, kind of getting, just jumping in to any class and onboard just more easily. So that's been a big challenge. And then, I mean, the biggest that stands out the moment you ask that question is definitely COVID. If you were a gym that lived through the COVID era, you saw your darkest days during that era for sure. I mean, we were forced to shut our doors. We were forced to, fortunately in Texas, it was a little more business friendly, and we immediately moved to some outdoor training. So we had outdoor training in a park. But I remember thinking to myself, if we had just opened like a year or two prior to COVID happening, there's no way we'd still be open today. The only reason we were able to sustain was because we had built up this like really great core membership, and they supported us through the pandemic. And then we were able to, like, when doors reopened, we were able to reopen, and but it was kind of like a harsh 20-30% of your membership haircut that you had to then rebuild that back up just to get back to where you were before COVID. And that was pretty tough. So definitely those were kind of the hardest hurdles that I think we've had to overcome.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. It's crazy
Yeah.
how even the businesses that survived through COVID, I mean, the pandemic just completely changed the landscape for big box gyms, boutique gyms, the fitness industry as a whole, and obviously well beyond just the fitness industry. It's certainly interesting times. But that being said, pushing forward a couple years, because Chase, your facility has been open for a while and you've experienced some great success, but I would love to just hear from you a little bit more about how your encounter with Revi kind of marked a turning point for you and your business, and how you found the confidence to trust Revi in the early stages from just the first conversations you and I had.
Yeah. So you personally cold called me, and or maybe cold text messaged me, and like I don't normally respond to any of that junk, but like your pitch was different, and I felt like you were legitimate, and I was like, I'm gonna take this call and see what this is all about. And just from our first call, I could tell what you were building and what you were kind of like, starting to get off the ground. I think you having been a studio owner yourself kind of understood some of the challenges that other SaaS that we had like worked with in the past, they just couldn't even relate to, right? It was just somebody at the end of the day trying to get you to sign up for a monthly subscription. Like they didn't get it. They didn't get the challenges. So I think in those early days, kind of like taking the call with you, like understanding that you were actually going to try to align with us to improve our gym, and not just sell us another monthly subscription that like 6 months or 12 months later we'd be like, do we really need this? And it's just a big inconvenience to like disconnect from your whole website and everything, which is what we had experienced in the past. So yeah, I could just tell that you had a better understanding of how onboarding worked, how membership worked, and everything. And so I was kind of fortunate to connect with you. It was at a really kind of pivotal time for us when we were moving away from one of the more expensive SaaS products in the space that was trying to automate a lot of what you were doing, but not very well. And then also didn't have any like advice on, hey, we need to like tweak some things here and there. So we couldn't make the in real life changes to the gym, with that software that you were kind of like pushing us to make. And I think that's the biggest change is like that somewhere you hit the right combination of, hey, this is what's working elsewhere. This is what you need to do in real life. And then this is what I can do with software and automation, right? It's like the blend of those two things is really where I think Revi has been so different for us, and has made a really big impact. So
I thank you so much for sharing that. And in those early stages, because it's something that, and I myself am certainly guilty of it as a business owner, it could be a little scary or a little intimidating kind of making changes, especially when you have a team that is going to be affected by these changes. So I would love to hear from you, just super high level, what was it like to embrace Revi strategies for the first time, and if you could share kind of how you navigated any uncertainties that you may have had or that your team may have had to honestly just committing to something new, or even just trying out something new for your gym.
yeah, I'm kind of the like out of the three of us, I'm kind of the wild idea, always interjecting new things into the business. And so I think like sometimes, I'm sure my partners would agree, there's sometimes they're just like, what is that? Like, what is this next thing, And so I understand the importance of needing to like reinvent ourselves to not die. And I think so it always comes from a good place for me, right? But like at the same time, like there are things that you suggest that don't work, and then there's things that you suggest that do, right? And you take the good with the bad. So I think when I first approached Ryan about it, who's our he's been on site for 10 plus years. He's, the head trainer at the gym. He's more focused on the fitness aspect of it, the community aspect of it. I think it was a lot for him to take on. And I was like, look, I think this is like legitimately worth the efforts of us. We had thrown around the idea of changing our onboarding for 5 years. Seriously. I mean, it was like a conversation that had been happening behind the scenes for the longest time. And I think finally having someone with some data, which Revi had, and some like feedback from other gyms that had made the transition, really helped me like, convince him that we should try to go in this direction and just see if it works. And worst case scenario, it doesn't work, we go back to how we were doing it before, right? So that definitely helped with like, but the conversations in the beginning were definitely a little challenging because it was making an entire, update to our process that we hadn't updated in over 10 years other than making minor tweaks. And so yeah, it took some buy-in for sure, but I'm glad this one worked out because Ryan is totally like, he gets it now. He sees it. He sees all the new faces in the gym. He sees more people coming in on a monthly basis. Like, it's also kind of, the onboarding is a little bit simplified too. So there's some things like for him that are actually have improved his life as a gym owner, that for the person who's there dealing with the day to day. So no, I think he's bought in now. It's just like it took some time initially
Sure.
to like kind of have that to
And
convince him.
do you think for Ryan there was like a specific moment, or for you there was a specific moment that was like, okay, this thing seems to be working, or do you think it was just over the course of months saying, realizing, oh, I'm seeing new faces coming in, I'm noticing this is simplified?
Yeah, it for us it was kind of a slow burn, like over the course of months thing. Like because I've done enough of this kind of stuff in my life to know that like it just takes time, right? You're not going to see results right out of the gate usually, even though we did in some ways, because you guys have a good way of like getting that initial bump of members right out of the gate. But then is that sustainable? Does that, 6 months down the road, where do we stand? How's retention? That sort of thing. So I think it was just a slow burn for the most part. And that was something I talked to Ryan about early on. I was like, I think we really need 6 months of like commitment to this to really see if it's going to work. And so from the jump, we were in it for 6 months to see where it was. And obviously now we've been with you guys for over 6 months. Yeah, I mean, it just took time, month after month after month of seeing more and more people onboarding. I think for me, it started to become when we were taking more things away, because in the very beginning we were a little bit worried of disconnecting that old bloated software right from our website. So we still had some of that stuff kind of working in tandem with what y'all were doing, and as we started to disconnect that thing like month 2, month 3, month 4, and like do everything kind of just like in-house on our own website with our own platform, and you guys were the only outside really force on that, right? That for me was when things started to really feel like, okay, yeah, like we didn't need any of that other stuff. I'm so glad we're able to drop it. This is really like all we need. And I could just still see the members coming in, still see the 7-day trials coming in, still see everything kind of working. And so for me, it did probably took until month 4 of kind of disconnecting that last piece of, software that was connected to something else, and just see it continue to work just on our own website. So
Yeah, well, listen, as someone that has experience being a business owner in the fitness industry, but still, from the outside looking in specifically for East Dallas CrossFit, I definitely want to congratulate you, or just, give you the props of saying, being almost 15 years into this thing, having the openness or willingness to be like, you know what, I want to keep pushing, I want to keep bettering ourselves, and being open to new ideas is something that I think is really hard to do, and something that when I first talked to you, one of my biggest motivators of being like, this guy gets it, and we're going to go absolutely all in on trying to provide the most value as we possibly can. So I definitely think that's super impressive and something I look up to, and just trying to imagine myself 10 years in, 15 years in of Revi, and being open to saying, all right, we've had a lot of success, but let's keep pushing and keep changing and keep iterating, and that's just how we grow as humans, and how we grow our businesses. So I think that's super cool. Jumping into the last couple of questions here, because we're about 20 minutes in and I don't want to take up too much of your time. If you're open to sharing any specific wins or any sort of measurable positive outcomes that Revi has offered for the transformation of East Dallas CrossFit, or even outside of Revi, any other uncoverings you've had over the last, multiple months of working together, I would certainly appreciate that. Again, if you're open to it.
yeah, definitely open to it. I mean, so I'll just talk about like membership onboarding, right? Because that's been the biggest thing you guys have helped us revamp. So we went from kind of the dated prep course model where it was, if it was inconvenient for you, tough, like it was inconvenient, or you could pay extra and do like a private session, and then you had to like schedule these private sessions. That was kind of our one workaround for like if you couldn't make the group course. So going from that model to going for, if you come to our website and you sign up for a 7-day trial, you can start like this evening or tomorrow. I mean, like naturally, of course, you see a lot more people start to just like take you up on that offer and sign up for classes and come in, right? Doing it safely, again, going back to the training and having to change your training first was like a big part of that. And so like doing that responsibly and not like getting somebody to come to a class where you're doing Olympic lifting and expecting them to Olympic lift, right? Like, so that was a big adjustment for us. But I mean, right out of the gate, seeing more just trial users of like a 7-day free trial, more new people in the gym, more new faces. We started tracking it on our back end kind of software, kind of just or segmented it out to see what was how many members are actually coming in. And I mean, we've had over 100 new faces come into the gym in less than 6 months. And then we've had just in the last 3 months, we changed it to where you can like submit your info to get our pricing model and our membership and all that. And we've had like almost 60 people in like 3 months, like just ask about pricing and that sort of thing. So, just a lot more members coming in and then seeing those members convert. That's been, I think, the biggest thing. So like, if you've ever run a gym or been in the gym business, you know how hard it is to retain members. I mean, it is like the biggest challenge is just retention, right? You get to a certain level and then it feels like for every 5 members you get, you lose 5 members, and for every that sort of thing. So just knowing that we needed to, like, we had never figured out a way to get more people onboarded and just kind of grow the community. And it's obviously been incredible. And to have people go from 7-day trial member to a full-time member to like seeing their face in the gym like 3-6 months later is like pretty cool. So that's, yeah, just from a membership standpoint, that feels a lot better. Now, the other thing that I would say has been a big win has been kind of exposing what else we can do. Because once you have a good number of people that are coming in your gym and you have a lot of fresh faces and everything, it kind of gives you a little bit more motivation to say, okay, well, what else do we need to do to like make sure everybody's happy here? Make sure like our old members aren't leaving. Make sure people have a reason to stay for longer, because retention is so important. And so it's kind of already pushed us to the point in a very short period of time of going from what can we do to even get more people in the gym? Well, we fixed that almost immediately to what do we do now to keep everybody here, make them happier, make them long-term East Dallas CrossFit members, because that's ultimately what we want. And it's the basics. It's the, build a community that people want to be a part of, do fun things, like have things inside and outside of the gym, like encourage people to get together and just all the things that you can do to like improve that. So that's more where our conversations are now, where we're like, we need to retain more members as well as continuing the onboarding that Revi helped us with. Yeah, I mean, so over 100 new faces in the gym in under 6 months, and we didn't get anything like those numbers before Revi. So like not even close, and then yeah, almost 60 people just asking about pricing. It's just it's totally, yeah. I mean, it's increased our just interest group, our interest pool, like of just local people interested in getting more info on the gym, like so much. So
awesome. Well, that's amazing to hear. So that makes me really happy, and
yeah,
thank you very much for sharing that. It means a lot. And just to kind of wrap this thing up, however you feel like it would be best to answer this last question here is if you have any advice to give to other gym owners who might be hesitant to embrace change like you did, and honestly just how you hope your story over the last, again, multiple months of working together might inspire others to take some bold steps and accept some, modern technologies, modern strategies to grow.
Yeah, if you don't change, you will die. I mean, that's just the reality. Like over the last 2 years in our little pocket of Dallas, which I'm talking about like East Dallas, right? Because Dallas is a big city. Our 3 closest competitors have all closed their doors in that 2-year period. And I'm talking specifically about CrossFit gyms. Mm-hmm. From the outside looking in, at times, these were a couple of these gyms we thought had it made. Had like, were way bigger than us. We thought in our heads were making way more money than us, like, or had nicer facility than us. Again, going back to that, like taking out a bank loan to build out your gym, probably not the best idea. And kind of from the outside looking in, you don't see any cracks, right? You're like, oh man, these gyms are huge or whatever. Well, the reality is as a, owning a brick and mortar business for as many years as we have, the challenges start to present themselves. In 10 years in the city of Dallas, there's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of new people that have moved here. There's been a lot of developers that have bought property and torn down property and built apartments. the land that your business is on becomes more valuable, right, over that time. You have to adapt. You have to bring in new technology. You have to continue to like push the envelope, or else you just won't be there. I mean, a big reason that I was so open to it, and a big reason I'm always open to like interjecting change and trying new things, is because, you know, I understand that our rent is going to continue to increase as the years go by. It has since we started. It's going to continue as we go. We have a great landlord. It's, you know, it's been a good deal, but at the same time, we have a lease that goes up, right, every year, and or definitely every 5 years. You have to make up for that. And the only way you make up for that is by reiterating your core business and making sure that you can continue to, you know, have the revenue you need to sustain the business. And so, yeah, I would just say, like, you know, anybody who's hesitant on making change to their business, that's fine, but you're probably not going to be around in another 2 to 5 years. So you have to be willing to make, and I understand not making huge changes in terms of massive investments into your place in order to take this like huge swing that you think is going to get you like I wouldn't suggest like putting in $100,000 worth of saunas and cold plunges, because like that's the trend right now, and you think that, you know, that's going to bring you 100 more members. Like, no, that's not a good idea, right? But getting back to like the core basics of your business, focusing on that, be willing to make changes there, be willing to make changes in just the most important aspect, which is your membership base. And yeah, I mean, that's my advice there for sure.
Awesome. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I totally agree with the answer to that question. And
Yeah.
it's definitely easier said than done. You know, it's hard to be willing to do that, but I think I've certainly been pushing myself over the course of my journey to continue to make those changes and continue to try to just be the very best that I can be personally, and I can be as a leader and within my business. And it's very evident that you do the same. So definitely super grateful to have met you, super grateful that you saw the value in this and decided to test it out, and we're going to keep doing everything we can to continue to provide even more value as per the last.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to, you know, what's ahead with this year, and just to see it, you know, the little small wins continue to stack, and just what happens moving forward. So yeah, momentum's a really cool thing, you know. You just a little bit of momentum and it starts to move in the right direction, and you just feel like we're kind of in that, you know, past that first hump. So we're yeah, really looking forward to it.
Agreed. Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, of course.